Hey everybody, Blind Man Travels here. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with me today. I wanted to take some time to answer some questions that you may have about me. First of all, am I really legally blind? And we'll just go from there. So, first of all, I will be putting in footage from my travels in Japan as well. If you like content about traveling in general, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let's just go ahead and answer my questions that that you might have. So first of all, yes, I am legally blind. The best way to describe it is I my vision is 2200. So I can see at 20 feet what a person with 200 vision, 20/20 vision could see from 200 feet. So let me put that into a little perspective. If I'm walking with you and you're my friend and I have 2200 vision and you have 20/20 vision and we're walking down the street and you point out a tree to me, I'll probably take your word that the tree is there. I'm not going to doubt you, but I probably won't see the detail of the tree. Now, once we get closer to the tree, I'll start seeing detail. And by the time we get up to 20 feet away from the tree, I'll probably see the same kinds of details that you were seeing from 200 feet away. But you'll obviously be seeing finer details from your 20 feet than I would be still. So I hope that answers questions as far as scale is concerned. That vision is all in my right eye. I don't have any vision or nil vision in the left eye as well. So that should hopefully explain that. Um, yes, I can use a smartphone. I can use a smartwatch. I do use a computer, mostly without accommodation. As a matter of fact, when I do travel, the only accommodation that I really, really need is assistance getting through the airport in a timely manner. Most airports I can honestly navigate once I get the hang of it, but the problem is that there's usually time constraints and time pressures if you're going through an airport. That's one of the reasons why when I booked my trip to Japan, I made two separate bookings so that I would not have to worry about pressure in connecting, so I could take a few hours and make it an easy connection process for me. Um, Other than that, though, I do prefer my own independence. I do tend to travel to locations that are accessible by public transit because I've been using public transit my entire adult life. However, some cities do a better job than others, or some locations do a better job than others at having public transit and making it accessible for everybody. So I tend to prefer to go to locations that have a good public transit infrastructure. That's why I really like Japan, partly, is because number one, it has a really, really good public transit infrastructure until you get out into the countryside. But if you're in any city or any medium sized town, you're probably going to be okay with public transit. And I know it's something that I can travel independently without having to ask for a lot of assistance most of the time. Um, One of the things that I happens though, and this happened when I went to navigate the train system in Tokyo, for me to read the signage, since the signage in English is smaller than the signage in Japanese. I would have to actually walk up to it a little bit closer to actually read what the signage said, um, so I can make sure that I was going to the right place. Obviously, if I can follow directions, which I can, uh, that's why I prefer to go to a place like Japan, which I've been to twice, or Singapore, which I've been to once, or some of the cities in Europe like London or Paris or Berlin. I really like Berlin. It's been a long time since I've been to Berlin, but there's a lot of history there too. Um, so that facets into the second reason why I really like traveling is because you get to experience experience history. You get to see some of these sites where history actually took place. I was a history major in college. My focus, honestly, was 20th century history, which primarily focused on World War II and the Cold War. But I've been known to dabble in other areas of history as well. And I've also developed a fondness for Japanese culture too, because I learned about Japanese history. Um, Other than that, though, I do like to enjoy good food. And I like to think I know where I can find good food. Um, Obviously, Japan is known for its culinary um, ability and spectrum, even things that don't originally come from Japan. The Japanese have gotten really good at, like bread making. Don't sleep on bread if you do go to Japan, simply because of the fact that it is really good bread and pastries. So they learned from the French, um, and that and their bread and their pastry game is really on point. Um, Other than that, though, I really like understanding. I like understanding other cultures. Um, I actually was a Star Trek fan when I was younger, still am, but the idea of exploring different cultures, that's a big part of Star Trek is keeping an open mind. So my kind of travel that I like to do travel kind of on a shoestring or a minimal budget as much as I can. So that's why I will spend less money for a smaller hotel room so that I can actually have a memorable meal or a memorable experience. Um, because the hotel is really only for sleeping. I don't really see myself necessarily going to resorts. That just isn't in my wheelhouse as of this particular point in time. Um, but I prefer to go places that are not necessarily the beach locations. I prefer to go to places that are a little bit more cultured. So I've been to Paris. I went to Paris in November, as a matter of fact. So I really enjoyed myself in Paris in November, but I spent most of the time museum and cafe hopping. And obviously, I went around in Paris the same way I went around in Japan by using the public transit infrastructure that's there on the Paris metro in order to get around the city. Um, the same thing, obviously, in London. I can enjoy a good pub in England, in a good beer and some pub grub. Um, I can enjoy I can enjoy a lot of experiences that any other traveler can. Just because I'm blind does not mean that I cannot appreciate those kinds of experiences, because obviously blindness, while it is a part of my identity, it isn't the core, it isn't necessarily the entirety of who I am. I'm a guy who loves history, loves reading books, loves documentaries. Um, I love to get analytical about history, um, and understanding, for example, what different leaders and different historic areas, um, different eras of history, were going through, what their thought processes were, and what was impacting their decision making process. A lot of that is driven by culture. And understanding cultures is actually a beautiful thing. Keeping an open mind to new cultures. Um, Now, what I will say is, I don't believe Japan, for example, is a paradise. Japan is not perfect. Japan has a lot of problems that it's dealing with, particularly with an aging geriatric population, and there are not enough people in the workforce to really adequately support the people who are on pensions right now. Um, that's not just a Japan issue. Japan is obviously the most pronounced with that issue. Um, but Europe is starting to experience that. And then obviously it will at one point come to the Americas. It will impact the United States and Canada as well. Um, and I want to see how these different cultures handle issues like that. For example, not saying that every culture is right or wrong, but uh, not placing a value judgment on their decision making process. However, I just want to keep an open mind to see what they're doing in their society and how they're addressing the issues that they're facing. And that's a big part of me wanting to travel as well, is to understand and analyze the cultural side of things. Because there's a nice part of traveling, which is, let's go check out the Eiffel Tower. Let's go to the Louvre. Um, let's go to the Tokyo Sky Tree, which is on the thumbnail of this video, a picture that I had of me taken there. Um, but there's, and that's definitely a great thing that can happen. But there's also a part trying to understand in my own little ways, trying to understand what's happening locally within the cultures, to know how they are addressing their societal problems. Other than that, though, like I said, um, I do like to know every point of view. I'm not going to make a value judgment. Let's say, for example, um, when 20 years ago, when the Netherlands legalized adult work or body work, however you want to put it, trying to keep this in a friendly, PG sort of a way, but you know what I'm talking about. Um, you know, that's not my value judgment to make. I would want to understand the reasoning behind why they made a policy like that, because it is something where It may not be the same thing that Americans do, um, but again, there's uh, there's no value judgment behind it on my end. I'm not going to place a value judgment behind what another culture does because obviously I'm not a part of that culture natively. Um, but I just want to keep an open mind. So to sum up and clarify, though, biggest things are that yes, I do love to travel and I like to experience traveling and I like to, in my case, sight, not see what I'm going to. That was a small little joke. But seriously, I like to experience the places that I'm traveling to. And I like to experience it firsthand. Um, and another part of that is enjoying enjoying what a place has to offer with my palate. Um, because I can definitely get as foodie as anyone else. So I do appreciate good food. I've been, like I said, I've been to Singapore, where some of the best food that you can have is at hawker centers, um, where it's not very expensive food, but it's very memorable food. In fact, I do believe that there are some Michelin star restaurants in Singapore that are in hawker centers, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but that's definitely an aspect of traveling is taking time to enjoy and appreciate the food. Um, Again, beyond that, though, it's just for me to really understand what a country or culture is going through. We are in a global economy, and a lot of that is obviously decisions that impact the market in Japan or in Europe are going to have knock-on effects within the United States and vice versa. So I hope that does help you to understand why I would be interested in traveling again. Like I said, I do travel 95% independently, with the exception of navigating through airports. Other than that, most of the time when I get to a city, I prefer to get out to the city on my own because I can figure it out. I can follow Google Maps just like anybody else. Even if Google Maps is a little bit confusing sometimes, um, I can still use it and I can use all my tools that I have at my disposal to navigate freely. So hopefully that helps to answer those questions for those of you that may be asking. Um, give you a little bit of insight into me and why would I even dare to blindly stumble around the planet. So I hope that helps answer those questions. Again, if you like this content and are interested in seeing more travel related content from me in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you yourself have traveled and for the first time have traveled, or if you have traveled independently or with or in any way at all, I encourage you to talk about your travel experiences in the comment section. Travel can be a very wonderful experience to be had. And in fact, it's one of the best experiences I think I've ever had is the experience to travel. I get a thrill out of being able to get on that airplane and fly halfway around the planet. I really enjoy that. I know some people are nervous on airplanes, but I really love that experience of flying. I love immersing myself into the culture. As a matter of fact, one of my preferences when I fly is I like to fly on an airline from that country that I'm traveling to, if I can at all, just because I do get a pre-taste of what the culture is like before I get there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and uh, close this video again. As always, um, don't forget to like and subscribe and discuss your travel experiences in the comment section. Thanks for watching.